tools in our, like I said, real, like just change some things to protect the guilty.
Right, it's kind of a, well, that's kind of a weird thing. And that's, you probably not actually looked at Julio's book. That's Lucky Me. One of the other guys, what's that? Oh yeah, that's exactly why he's a part of all the stuff that we're doing. He wrote a book now. It's his, if you will, autobiography of growing up in the streets of Bronx. Not easy to read, but it makes you go, okay, when I meet somebody now, I have to go, I don't know where you've been.
Right.
And give me the respect of saying you don't know where I've been.
Right.
I mean, we may have very different lives,
Right.
but it's like just a way of opening doors to say, all right, let's connect as humans first, and then go from there. So I definitely want to really.
It's like you getting the mission right on your head. That's the whole goal. Like, it's where these people can act up from a certain walk of life and judge other people. Without knowing what the struggle is. My whole mission was to look at the people from different walks of life, to get to see others, how to create dialogue and work on some of those things that are, wrong, or that lead people down the wrong path. So yeah, I'm glad.
Hundreds. Yeah, it's really, it was. I mean, you're right. Good, but it was the other review that I wrote. Like that. I don't know what she said, or he or she in that review, but I was like, I got to read the book now. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So anybody else she brought on, not at all interested, but I'm kidding.
Thanks, Sally. I couldn't.
What's that? Yeah, she did lose. She brought one. Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, she brought some wonderful. And that's it to me. I want to get all these people, right? And I keep trying to. I want to get us all back home. And I want us to go, how are we going to get this message to the street? How can we each get out of the street now and say, okay, this is how we start a dialogue. This is how we help our community. All of our work is about community development, right? But it's all masked under massively marketing this way. So that we can find the people that want to see change in our community. Now it's like, okay, let's get together and also plan how we work together. And we've been working for like 4 years now. And that's so whenever there's just things that heal. And that was same in Julio's book. When I read his book, he actually let me do it before he went to print and everything else. So it was a little more rough, but I really appreciated, if you will, the rawness of the ad. That's it. This is where we have these people voices. Because they somehow in his world, and I imagine yours he wrote it, you become a reasoned voice. Right? It's like you need a voice of the person back here who maybe doesn't quite yet see what you see.
Right.
But you can sit there and go, I love you because we need to say this.
Right.
And it's for your good that I'm saying this. It's for all of our good that I'm saying this.
Right.
Yeah.
It is definitely like you said, that was a song that she heard around and she was being graphic, expletive, or expletive, we're happy, but it's real.
Yeah, like,
I mean, and if if there's a 16-year-old girl who's writing this, you understand that there's a whole bunch of people out there, this is where we have, and you can choose to serve people and say this is too much for me, but all those people they can't do it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
It may be offensive too. As long as they keep that in mind, then I think we're going in the right direction.
Yeah, and I'm 100% with you. I can't say that I read every single part of this Julio's book because I read it like, wow, my heart breaks this. No, come back to it. Your heart breaks it. Good. If you're offended, you know what? Good. But check yourself. That's reality. It's good, but yeah, that's I really look forward to it. So I'm looking forward to today's interview to hear more about it. So when did the book get published?
It's just been out now a little over a week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just got some Amazon.
Who's already?
There were because there were people that were waiting for it, you know what I mean, and they
they pre-released.
A couple of the person I sent like PDFs to, like you read it before, so they read it before it was actually done. So they were, ready to read it. And I had a few people so they already.
And how long did it actually take you to write the book? And literally, inspiration, like I need, right? What was the catalyst? What started you there, and then what was the process?
What made me want to write it?
Yeah, like what was it that, was there a moment that you said, you know, I need to write about this? Was there a catalyst or something?
I think it's probably a combination of things, but trying to hold you fit, like, especially now, like we live in a society where there's this, about conversations with God and always relate back to it, but he was talking about consciousness, you know what I mean? And he was talking about the inner experience that he was saying, he's asking God, it's all about it, and long story short, it's like, it's not what he did, it's what people allow him to do. And I think nowadays you got this whole, you got this whole out there that it's us and it's them.
You wouldn't have a pen around, would you?
It's we, it's us. That's,
Actually, you know what, that might be okay. I'm okay, I can use this.
What I always say is, okay, let's take you back 20 years and let me make it more practical.
I'm gonna run out of this around 30. How much
All
is it?
these circumstances, let's see if you end up the same way. You know what I mean?
yes, yes. But that's, I was having a conversation with somebody who, and I really appreciate this, the word, oh, like privileged people who go up to Harvard, man, their kids go to Harvard, man, their kids go to Harvard. Why? Well, because their parents sat there and said, you need a college education, and you need to get, in order to get there, this is what you do, and this is how you do it. And they map the path for them. What if you put it with, right? It's like, so it's not a problem that these people had parents who were able to give the path.
Right.
The problem is that we don't have others being able to lead the path. You know? And it's a trouble, but there's this great divide. And the funny thing is, it's about 6 inches. It's like all right here. It's all right here, and go, hey, come on, let's make this work together. You know? Cool. Okay.
You know what I mean? Like when this person how they got there and the influences and what they were surrounded with, why people got this shit, and that was really the dream.
And how did you get to the point where you have no values for your own life? You know, like,
No, I would stay back to
this is what I do.
I would stay back to it's not the appropriate time to search for
You know, man, we've got to start
keep it class.
pumping out. You're more valuable. There's more to you than these circumstances. But,
We're going to do those options, and I think it's a big thing. If you don't even know those opportunities are there, you don't know how to decide, and you're more successful. You know what I mean?
yes,
I just think that I'd like to see us know better, bring that information and their know-how, their experience, and their time, and try to get somebody else to see that, you know what, if you don't make it to an NBA, it doesn't mean you have to be up for it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
If you don't make it practical, doesn't mean you have to be there. So there's no
and I go the other way right now. When I talk to people, I'm like, just don't deal with that person. Because they were brought up on being told, or at least shown, that's what you got to do. You know? It's like, so don't do that. Because, your family owns the corner store. He owns the corner block.
Right.
Unfortunately, I'm unlikely to send them to dad in prison. But let's not judge it. That's the big. That's cool. It's about doing what you feel compelled to do, and then let it happen.
Right.
You created the seeds. Now it's like getting those out there, and hopefully that makes a difference. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I think that's what we're gonna. No, I think we're gonna start. Are we gonna start normal?
Yeah.
All right. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
You gonna sit with me?
Okay.
I don't know. I think maybe we can talk about it. I don't
No,
know.
go for it. You got this is your room. You know.
I wish I remember what I read this morning. So I was like, oh, actually, this was it.
Are we ready?
Hi everybody, and welcome to Afternoon Cocktail. This is episode number 8, and today's episode is titled Change. So much has changed. This is Chuck Lavecchi of Udicci.TV, and if you are tuning in via our live stream, you are on Udicci.TV currently, so thank you.
Exactly.
So I brought, well, Chuck and I always kind of kick this off with a
Real
good
quick, let me just do
conversation.
one thing. Justin, make sure you go into production mode so if the audience is watching, they can come back to us. So go into production. All right, go ahead. So a little bit of on-screen direction, if you will. So
Yeah.
there we go. So yeah, so what are we talking about today?
Well, I'm talking about change because I know, like, via our last conversation, you know, things got a little loopy with our show here because of I went away. I went away for a week to Nashville, Tennessee, which was more of a mental break for me than anything else. I think most people thought I was treating it as a musical like getaway, which kind of was, but for the most part, I just needed a break from reality. And you know, I met a lot of strangers along the way, and I had mentioned this to you over the telephone, and how I felt. You know, I got a lot of writing done on my way back because I felt like, you know, it was just an experience. The last time I was there was exactly a year ago, and I learned kind of a lot about myself, and I did a lot of self-realization during my travels a year ago. I was touring down south between here, Washington, D.C., and then I went all the way down to Nashville. It was basically the focal point of that trip for me. And I did it by myself, and it was remarkable. I didn't get murdered. But
Well, is that where you set the bar? It was remarkable if you don't get murdered? Is that what it is? Okay.
Murdered.
Now we know where the bar is set. All right.
Murdered and various other bad things.
All right.
But yeah, that was where I set the bar. But yeah, it was remarkable because I completely like just embarked on this by myself, and my mother was, you know, took Tylenol PM for probably about, you know, 30 days and was just paranoid that I was going to get killed. So, but you know, the biggest thing I took home for me, you know, was my experience, and just, you know, I took that experience, and I promised myself that I would grow in the following year to come.
Okay.
And going back to Nashville this year for me kind of, you know, made me look back and realize all the changes that took place, you know, personally, professionally, all the things that came along in a year, and it made me feel good. Part of it makes me feel a little bit terrified for the next year, but I've met a lot of really, all the new people that came into my life, I felt like taught me something. And I said to you over the phone, you know, like, why is it that, you know, like when you meet new people, like when you're put into a vulnerable state, you know, where you don't, I felt like, you know, I was going through a lot of things mentally, and, you know, I was, you know, talking to people, and I was exposing myself on a level that I probably wouldn't normally expose myself to just anybody, you know, and I was, you know, trying to, and part of it was last year I was couch surfing, which for those of you who don't know what that is, it's actually a website for touring musicians, artists, people that are world travelers. And it's a social media thing, essentially. I think it's kind of, it's not as huge as Facebook or anything. I think to a degree, people that are on it are trying to protect it because it really is a phenomenal program.
Okay.
But I mean, I guess it's very risky, you know, because literally you are going to strangers' houses and you are staying on their couch for however long.
It's a wee bit risky.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing you didn't get murdered.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No wonder that you set your bar up.
Absolutely.
But actually, that's interesting though. So to understand that a little bit, that actually did take quite a bit of risk. That took a lot of risk for you to go, let me go try this. I mean, I remember hearing about the guy who went across country only on what he could get off of Craigslist. You get rides, stay at people's house, you know, that kind of fun. So, oh, that's interesting then. Okay.
Well, it's cool because it's honestly the best way that, in my experience with couch surfing, I did it in New England and I did it down south. and I met some really, really interesting characters.
That's cool.
And the people that I met, for instance, when I was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, I stayed with 3 students, and they were extremely, like, highly intelligent. They took me to, like, a Harvard party, like,
Okay.
like I was very out of place there, but they made me feel stupid. Well, not really. They were very, like, welcoming, but through them and these people that know the area, they take you around, and they really go the extra mile to show you, like, where all the cool places are to go, the great places to eat, like artsy areas, like what do you want to see? And they already know that I'm an artist, and they know my background because of my profile, and then just by being in contact with them. So they know what they're getting into with me. I kind of know what I'm getting into with them, but it's like we're learning each other. So in that process of learning each other, you're exposing yourself on a level that maybe I wouldn't. It might take me a longer or extensive period of time to, you know, like for a good friend out here, people that I'm meeting out here that I know I'm going to see on the regular.
Yeah, there's less
you know?
risk for you.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, in taking that risky step of not knowing somebody, there's actually less risk in exposing yourself because you can just leave it behind and delete them from your profile, and then you're good.
Isn't it? It's just a funny thing though, because like my friend Bo that I host the open jam with on Thursdays. We've been friends forever. Well, since I moved here, he's probably like one of my longest friends, and he knows me well. And when I got back from Nashville the first time, my 3 people that I stayed with ended up coming to visit me like 2 months later. And we went to New York City, and we rented out an apartment, and we had a blast. So in actuality, you know, including this past time that I just went a few weeks ago, I've probably known my friend Spencer for a total of 3 weeks in my entire life.
Right.
I've known Bo for 6 years, you know, and he's like, you know, careful here. He's like, you're saying that like this guy is like such a great friend. He's like, I just don't understand how you could say that. He's like, that kind of like hurts my feelings a little bit, you know, like when, you know, like we've known each other for so long, you know, and there's people here that love you and all this stuff. Like, how could you just like give up your all to this person and say like, right off the bat, they're a great friend, you know?
It's a great question. How can you?
I don't know. Well, my answer was, well, I answered it 2 ways. My answer was, I could tell by the way people make me laugh, whether or not they're going to be a good person, they're going to be somebody that's going to be long-term in my life. That was one thing. And I think the people that you laugh and cry hardest with, no matter what period of time that extends upon, it goes back to that vulnerable state. You know, like I felt like these 3 people that I met in Nashville were people that I laughed till I cried, and I cried such hard tears with too, over, you know, things I was experiencing. And like upon leaving there, you know, like I was really sad. So I just kind of knew that if I felt comfortable enough bringing myself to the level of stupidity it took for me to laugh that hard and for me to expose like how seriously stupid I could be, and they think that's funny, like great, you know, that's one thing. But the fact that like I could bring down that barrier to a point where I could share who I am, you know, as a human being, and to let that guard down and to actually sit there and explain to them why my heart aches and cry, like that's another thing, you know, and I don't really let that guard down for many people. So that was one part of it. And I think just the experience in
Well, I'm
general.
curious, like as I'm thinking through this, I think it's interesting. What you're describing here is that you're finding comfort in the extremes, the laughing and the crying. But what about the people who are just going to challenge you to the point of sharpening you? What about the people who already kind of can you meet with that person who already knows you for 6 years and let them challenge you at such a level that you're willing to look at? Or are you saying that I've already got the depth that I want in life, so as long as I can go to the extremes of what I have, that's what I'm looking for?
I don't know. I mean, it's not like I haven't, like, I shouldn't say I haven't allowed that to happen with these people that I've known long term, but I guess for me, like when I look at the amount of time it took for me to get to that point that I almost came to instantly, it made me question, like, well, why does this happen? You know, like, why, how is it that I've allowed these, like, really complete strangers, like, I've allowed them to access me in a way that has taken so many other people so long. And I think, like, the only answer that the only conclusions I could really come to was, you know, that I think I was going there looking for an experience. And looking
Yes.
for, you know, and this is what you brought to my attention, actually, you know, that when you're soul searching and you're looking for something, you're reaching so hard to find whatever that is, and you're kind of like letting down a guard, and that vulnerability kind of just opens you up instantly, you know. And even the people I was meeting there, like, everybody, like, there's a lot of transplants, like, in Nashville. Like, people are just freaking from everywhere,
Sure,
you know,
sure.
like, all over the place.
It's
you
where
know?
we all go to find ourselves, or to
Yeah.
get famous in Nashville, right? It's an odd melting pot, if you will, of like-minded spirits.
Yes, yeah. And everybody, it reminded me actually of being in college, like freshman
Okay,
orientation,
sure.
where, you know, everybody's just like looking to make friends, and they're looking to find their place, and they're soul searching, but they're trying to find their path in life, and they know that music's for most people that are going there is the driving force, and they know that we all have this in common. We're all like passionate about music, and we all want to further our careers in some way. So
Sure.
we go to the Mecca, which is Nashville, but we're all lost. We're lost souls in some way or another.
No, yeah, I think you're hitting, I think you're absolutely spot on what you're saying. Everybody's looking for something, and they're trying to express themselves, and yet they're lost. So in their lostness together, they're like, oh, at least we found others who are lost, and therefore it's comfortable.
And therefore there's something to relate to, and therefore they're like being overly friendly, or, you know, like they're opening themselves up because they're making an extra effort to be known,
Yes.
and
Yes.
to
Yes.
allow those other people into their
Yes,
lives.
because they're trying to network, and they're trying to get out. I mean, it's like they're actually seeking, if you will, I don't want to call it fame, but, you know, they're seeking their
Something more.
realization of their dream, if you will, and they're making it happen. So let me ask you this now: do you think that it's kind of that road less traveled that we have to go down to better find who we truly are and who our character is? In other words, that we have to persevere through those things that we don't want, or are we to go when the going gets tough? Let's drop out and go hang out with people who are like-minded with us, and that's what we found in Nashville. So like when you start going, all right, I needed a mental break. And all of a sudden I went down to Nashville, and here I didn't have to think about anything because all these people are right there with me. They're right there in the same spot in life. They're right there going, yes, I finally made it to Nashville, and now my dreams are going to come true, and I'm an artist, and you're an artist, so we must be really cool, and we're together, and we're going to do this thing,
Yeah.
right? But what you left behind, what you had to get that mental break from, what if who you really are, and your best you, and the true you is found on the other side of that break that you walked away from?
I don't know.
I don't know.
You told me, Chuck.
I'm supposed to just ask the question.
Now I feel like I lost soul again.
No, you're never a lost soul. You're just a wandering soul.
Oh yeah. Always
back to the light. There's two of them right here. Just come back to the light. You're good. You're good there. So when we think about today's subject is change, what does that mean for you? And when you think change, and in light of what you're doing in life right now and looking for it, and you're saying lost soul, which is an interesting word. Just think about literally what you're saying is lost soul to describe yourself.
Well, I mean, you know, the thing about change, well, you know what today is.
Yeah, it's September 11th.
It's a gloomy day, you know, not only in Rochester, but, you know, all over for America, you know, it's September 11th, and it's been 13 years. I think about when I was 16, you know, and I think, 16, I was sitting in second period math, you know, and I hated math. I'm awful at math, I still am. And I was sitting there in class, and I'm like, what the heck is this teacher? Like, you know, and all the teachers are conversing in the hallways with like the AV, the TVs being dragged in, and you know, rumors are going around. You know, plane hit the World Trade Center. My sister, who is here in the audience from New York, she like 6 months before was working on 81st floor.
Yeah.
81st floor of the World Trade Center, got laid off, was devastated, event coordinating, ended up finding another great event coordinating job, you know, like blocks away, and, you know, I think about who I was then, you know, and what I thought my life path would be, and, you know, I always thought, you know, I'm gonna go to school for music, I'm gonna graduate, I'm going to move to New York City, I'm gonna be this artist, I'm gonna do all these things. You know, then life happens. And that's completely, I ended up in Rochester, New York. You know, I got married. Like all the things that I never thought I would do, you know. And, you know, and now years later, I'm in a very different place again, you know. And it's just like this constant evolution that keeps taking place, and these cycles, and you know, and I read it in this book too, you know, like the decades of your life, your 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and beyond, you know, like in that span of time, how much you grow and how much changes over time. And I think, you know, like in relationships even, you know, like with a change I'm undergoing with my relationship, you know, like I've changed. I'm the one that's changed, you know, and I know that. I don't think change is necessarily a bad thing,
no.
But when you put it in terms of a relationship and how things could go very sour, you know, it could invert a lot of
I think
things.
that
Not be a good thing.
For me, you kind of hit on it, and we'll bring it back to September 11th here in just a minute, but change is not a bad thing. Undoubtedly, change is not a bad thing. We were just talking a minute ago with Julian, and realistically, for us to see any kind of real change in our entire society, the change has to happen between our ears. But I think what we have to look at is that change that we're considering, it is got to be, when we're saying, I'm going to make a change, that change has to be about something greater than us. It can't be simply that I want to change, or that I want to change the scenery, or I want this, or I want that, because exactly what you just said, it hurt others around you. And sure, some of your decisions may make others hurt, but if you're making a change for a principled reason, then hopefully those who are hurt are following along and learning. But if you're changing them simply because of wanton heart or a lost soul, right now we're going, I'm willing to hurt others because of what I want. And that starts to speak to that division of our country. And if you will, even the division of what happens on, say, like a September 11th, is people who want something very different. I mean, whether you believe it is a religion thing or a religious thing or otherwise, you had people who wanted to show for their God what they were willing to do. And then you have people within that same religion saying, that's not who our God is. And then we have people on another religion saying, nope, you know. And we're all so separate that we want our own beliefs to be true. And oftentimes the real division says, when my beliefs are such that I'm going to take actions that hurt another, I have to ask, are your beliefs rooted in love and caring? And it's a tough question. So, I mean, like when I think about change, is that do we go too far?
I don't know. I feel like we might be like going all over the place, but I mean,
Okay.
it's kind of, well, no, I mean, it's my fault. But I think like,
I'm just following your lead. We're good.
I know.
And like you said, we go in circles. We're good.
Well, I mean, even thinking about like bringing it back to September 11th again,
Yes.
you know, like look how much has changed now. Now we're in a brand new crisis 13 years later, you know, like in our own country, you know, and we're on the verge of, I mean, to me, it looks like we're going into a world war. I mean, everything that, look at like the change from Al-Qaeda to ISIS,
Yes.
you know, like not to get all political, but, you know, like just how everything's advanced over time, you know, and now like we're, you know, we have a brand new president, you know, another president, it's 13 years later, you know, and the technological advances, social media, all of this stuff that interplays on the intelligence of other people around the world, you know, and how that's impacting the terrorism and impacting the threats upon our own country. You know, it's like all these other, like all these changes have taken place beyond us, beyond individual, from our individual standpoints, you
Yes.
know, But
And let me kind of break, that was kind of where I was going with this, is that if you look at the changes that started on September 11th, and absolutely, if you look in the world right now, you would easily see where World War III is happening. It's not exactly like it's, we're following the same patterns that we got there. But here's the thing. As society, we're allowing those same things, like, where you were talking about, Hitler. They're like, the society allowed them to happen. Why? Because they didn't necessarily have the fortitude to say, you know what, I'm wrong, let me listen. Just because my heart feels this way, I believe I should act that way. Whereas if we could individually stand up and say, no, I believe that we need to act in one accord for the good of more, we as citizens have far more power than any government. And what happens every time that we choose ourselves and the want of ourself over the good of society, we're a part of the division that allows these things to keep happening. And as much as I can, like anybody else, because I do get into history and politics and I do appreciate all that, I can look out over the country right now and over the world, and I can point to things going, this is not good and we're in a bad place. But I can equally sit here and go, but you know what? In this room right now, we have a gentleman who wrote a book that said, I can make a difference. We know in our city, each and every day, through social media, we've got people out there picking up trash because they're saying, I can make a difference. And if we can come together and say, I can be that difference, and instead of us going on in search of ourselves, right, maybe we should go in search of love. Maybe we should go in search of truth and make it about something bigger than us. And if we make it about something bigger than us, when we find it, we'll find ourselves because we're going to be inside of it. Right? Truth is true by its nature. It cannot change. Let's figure out what truth is. So let's seek that together. And if we can, as a society, collectively come together, that's the change that's going to be good. But if we, as society, sit there and continue to extol the individual, and what you want as an individual is more important than the good of society, well, we're going to continue to be looking at a World War III, and it's going to happen all over again. Soapbox, okay. I'll get off the soapbox, I'm sorry.
Well, you know what? You're saying choose, and that was like...
Choose.
The power of choice is something that... now going back to the Nashville thing, I feel like we're jumping around a lot.
No, we're really not. I think it's good. I know right now people in the audience are going, no, you're good, you're going in circles.
I think like the thing with Nashville, and that was one thing that I realized being there too. Because I was by myself, I had the power of choice to choose who I wanted to surround myself with, who I wanted to expose myself to, who I wanted to keep around, who I could discard. I know it sounds terrible, but like I only had a week's time there,
That's
so
right.
These are the people that I'm gonna choose to spend my time with, I'm gonna choose to go out with, I'm gonna choose to go to open mic every night because I'm in Nashville and that's what I should do. And so I had the power of choice, and that was very liberating and exciting.
Absolutely.
Applying this back to the like what you were just saying, I think, it also makes me think about, and relationships too, the power of choice, do we choose to deny?
Absolutely.
Deny a lot of things, like denial.
Haven't you ever looked in the mirror and looked at yourself and then gone back a year later and go, yeah, I was wrong?
Yeah.
We deny what's right in front of us when we stand in the mirror. Because we don't want to face the truth about ourselves, because it's really pretty ugly.
It's scary.
When you start to, we're pretty selfish people by nature.
Yeah.
And I guess what I would say about choice, if you will, absolutely, you just said, we get to make a choice how we want to live our life, or we get to make the choice of making our life for the next generation. And if we make our life for the next generation, then it's no longer about us. It's that bigger thing again. And all of a sudden we have to start making those decisions. Not like, and I get it completely. You're talking business, and I get that. And when you say, and I want everybody to know that. I understand when you say discard. I get it. You're sitting here going like, you know what? That person's not going to help move my business forward. And I know your heart. You don't mean I'm discarding that person. I know that, and I want that clear as far as what that's going. Because in business, sometimes you have to say, you know what? Yep, no, you don't get it. You don't get it, and it's okay. I love you. We're good, and I'll remember you. Please come to my show, and I'll come and hang and talk with you. But in life, that's tough whether or not we should even have that choice. But we do. We do have that choice in life, whether we're going to leave others behind or we're going to bring them with us.
Powerful
All right.
stuff, Chuck Levetti.
All right. Well, I guess we should probably get on. And I don't know who's up first. I think I should change this up. Huh? Who? I don't know who you had first. No, David is going to be here. Well, why don't you go to Julian?
Yeah.
Julian, it'll be a great transition to Julian, right? Sounds like a transition. All right, come on up, and I'll go find David for you.
So we have Julian Foster come up. Thank you, Chuck, for the conversation and for making sense out of my gibberish. I'm going to bring up my new friend, Julian Foster. He is an author. His new book is titled Before I Wake. And he's coming up to talk to us. But as he gets ready, Julian?
I was handing some stuff outside.
No, you are okay.
Hi.
How are you?
How are you?
Pleasure to meet you,
Okay,
finally.
nice to meet you too.
I'm excited. I do
have
have my notes. That is your biggest note, but your longest note, right?
Yeah.
Well, tell them about yourself. So this is Julian Foster.
Right.
He just released this book when?
Oh,
What's the actual
man.
release date?
It's been out like maybe a little over a week and a half, maybe about a week and a half, 2 weeks.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
It's very
Appreciate
exciting.
it. Yeah.
What inspired you to write this? Is this your first book?
Yeah, this is my first novel.
Okay.
I was initially a spoken word artist. I did that ever since I was 16, I guess, like high school. And then I decided to write a novel a few times in my life, and I finally did it.
How long did it take you to write this?
The actual writing time wasn't the time-consuming part. I kind of think and I like write. I didn't do an outline. I didn't do like a storyboard. I kind of just told the story, just let it come out, and I typed pretty fast. So I think total writing time was probably 2.5 months.
Wow,
Maybe.
that's it?
So it was, yeah.
This is a hefty book. It's
Yeah.
322 pages
Yeah.
of creativity. So you said this was, a lot of the characters were influenced by, real life characters? Or?
Right.
Okay.
Right. The main character is, like I said, probably a combination of, I was a sentry, which is basically a security guard at Madison, which is a local inner city high school, and just seeing a lot of what the young females were going through in their lives as they're growing up and they're developing, they're growing into their bodies, they're getting a lot of attention, and just what they're going through on a day-to-day, and you would be surprised how many of these girls are like 13, 14, and they're having to make adult, in my opinion, grown woman decisions, you know what I mean, because of lack of guidance or lack of parenting. They're listening to their peers, and I don't know. I don't want to blame it on music, but they have a lot of influences, and not necessarily enough positive people in their lives to guide them, down the road to where they should probably be going.
I think even without those positive influences, like even if you had positive influence, like I think about when I was like 14, and probably the same for guys too.
Right.
You always think you're so much older
Yeah.
and more mature than what you really are. And
Yeah,
like when I look back, I'm so mortified at the things
Right.
that I used to do. Like I still will
Right.
never tell my parents,
Mhm.
but like the things like my friends and I used to do, it's like very scary. It makes
Yeah.
me scared to ever have children. So now let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us give the audience a little synopsis of what your book's about before we get into any more details? Like a good summary.
It's kind of hard for me because the book, depending on what I'm thinking about at the time, I think about so many different things. But basically, in short, it's about a young girl from the inner city who is trying to make her way. She's coming of age and she's trying to make her way. And she's, like I said, she's forced to kind of make these decisions, and because she's young and she doesn't have the guidance, she makes one decision and that leads to, it's kind of like a domino effect. And that bad decision leads to another bad decision, which leads to another bad decision, and she ultimately ends up in a real sticky situation, and I don't want to give the ending away, so,
Sure.
But it's very authentic. I think it's very true. The stories and what happens in the book, are true stories. Either I've experienced them, was involved with them, or saw them firsthand. And as I spoke to you earlier, names have been changed, or maybe some details have been changed to protect.
Of course.
But yeah, that's in general. I don't know if that's a good enough synopsis. It's hard for me because she goes through so much, and there's so many different levels that are kind of affected. There's so many parts of her affected, so it's kind of hard for me to kind of like shove it in a bottle. But that broadly is basically what it's about. Yeah.
I mean, how good did you feel when you were like having that period?
It was it was like giving birth.
I believe it.
I believe
How do
it.
you know? Like, did you take it to an editor, or did
Yeah,
you? Okay.
and that was a time-consuming part. What I was going to say earlier, it's not necessarily the creative process. Like I said, I've written for a long time. That wasn't the part that was hard. The part was the editing process and bouncing it off. My editor was a great editor, Lena Alvarez. I got to plug her. She, going back and forth and saying, well, I don't like this, or maybe you should change that. And that part gets tedious, and it was time-consuming, and that was the work.
Sure.
The story for me was just natural because I lived it, and it kind of just flowed. You know what I mean? But when you're cleaning it up and you're deciding what kind of language to use, or to maybe not say something like this and say it like that, that's the work.
Now you say, I know you said you do a lot of spoken word,
Right.
And I mean, you've obviously have been doing writing throughout your life.
Mm-hmm.
Was there ever a point, like early on in your life, where you're like, you know what, one day I aspire to write a book. I'm going to write a book by this age, or I'm going to do this.
No, I was a lot more of a, like you guys were saying earlier, a wanderer of sorts. I wasn't that focused, if you will. I think that, initially with me writing poetry and doing spoken word, I think my first thought was to write a book of poetry. You know what I mean? I didn't have it in my head. So I always read, you know what I mean? But I never thought that I'd be writing a novel until, I saw these things and I experienced these things, and I felt like there was a need to get this story out here. There was a need for people to experience this, experience life through somebody else's eyes, essentially. Yeah.
What would you say was the most challenging part of writing a book?
Writing this book, I'm not going to say a book generically. I'm going to say this book was that I wrote it from the standpoint of a female. So there are a lot of things that I know we as men think we understand women, and we understand, what they're thinking and why they're thinking that and what they're experiencing. I mean, we have it in our heads as to, how something is being received. And not just by a female, but by anyone. And I think one of the challenging parts was writing it from a female's perspective. I had to get a female's perspective, and not without getting too graphic. I'll say that, for instance, sexually, what a woman experiences sexually. I in my head, of course, as men, we think, but not necessarily. You know what I mean? So to have to talk, that's kind of embarrassing, but to actually have to speak with a female and say, okay, look, you have to walk me through this from your perspective so I can understand it, I can convey it in this book, and it can be authentic. And it was a learning experience, and that was a challenge, writing.
Sure.
Yeah.
From the actual publication standpoint, getting it published, did you feel like you had to go through? Was it more challenging? Did you find there were a lot of loopholes you had to jump through, or was there any challenging elements to actually just getting it into publication or promotion? Do you find any of the business end of after the creative process is completed? Do you find any of the business end? Did you find it overwhelming, or?
Well, there's two approaches. You can self-publish, or you can get an agent and you can try to formally publish. I chose to self-publish in the end, and that was pretty seamless. I mean, Amazon has a program called Create Space, and anybody out there can, basically, to a fault, can print a manuscript out and upload it to Create Space Amazon, and they pretty much handle that for you. So that process isn't really hard at all now anymore. I think the process of actually trying to find a publisher to publish your work, or to find a literary agent, that can be hard. That can be an uphill battle. That can be tedious. But since I just decided to put it out myself, it was pretty easy.
It's interesting to see the literary world, how, because I'm a musician,
Okay.
that's really what I do, and for me, it's like, everybody is self-publishing like their music too. It's like they're getting everything digitally distributed, or, making their own CDs, so it's a lot of that higher end management is almost taken out, and there's a lot more self-promoting going on because, as artists, we're, most of us are creatively struggling like with that end of it, the business end, or we don't have a lot of money, so we're trying to, save money where we can so that, by doing it our own route, it's a little bit more feasible. Or it's just hard to find that management. And it's interesting to see, like, I know a few people that have published books and like how they kind of are going through like the same process.
Right.
So is this downloadable?
Yeah, it's
On
available on Amazon. You can order paperback, you can order the Kindle.
Nice.
So it's both on Amazon, paperback and Kindle, and then, of course, I have my copies too, which I'm selling hand to hand, but I'm doing a lot of business and marketing as far as on the internet and trying to generate sales and whatnot like that,
Do you have this available at any like local bookstores that people can pick it up? Or?
Right now, no. And the reason it is because, as you said, as me being self-published and me being an independent artist and I'm trying to do it myself, I actually have to pay for these copies, you know what I mean? And when it comes to a retailer, especially a book retailer, they're usually used to dealing with big book distributors, so they can get a better break, you know what I mean? And a lot of these retailers want to buy the book for like $5, $6, and I can't afford to do that, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Nor can I afford to put it in their store and for free and then split profits with them 50-50 just because it's not going to work on my end as far as ordering more work.
Right.
You see, so it's more of a money thing right now. I think if, of course, if I was published by a major publisher and what have you, those things would kind of take care of themselves, but...
Yeah, that would be a good idea, the coffee shops, local coffee shops, for the shopping around here. I bet you could just...
Well, that's why I made the flyers. I just got these yesterday, and I'm going to try to do that,
Very cool. Now you see yourself do you see yourself actually writing a poetry book still in the future, now that you've got this under your wing?
I don't know, because, like I said, for me, there's a difference between spoken word, performance poetry, and poetry that's intended to be read out of a book. That's just my opinion. And I don't know, it depends on what I'm writing a lot of at that moment. You know what I mean? I know that if I do it, it'll probably be a combination of things. I'll have some poetry, probably some photography, some art. I kind of want it to be, I don't want it just to be poetry. You know what I mean? I want it to be like, I'll probably get back with Lujar. Lujar actually did my cover.
I was going to just bring that up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I want to say Lujar was one of our featured artists on Afternoon Cocktail a few episodes back. And he actually did the artwork for Julian's book, Before I Wake. And how'd you guys hook up?
Through Facebook. Actually, what you're seeing there is it's a projection photography. So I actually hired a model, and we projected this image onto her back, and then we took a picture of it, and then what you see there is when it's all Photoshopped. But we actually did the photo shoot at Phyllis Wheatley Library. And it's hard to tell now because you have the Photoshop. I have pictures on my phone of the actual shoot, but her name was Larissa. She came in, she posed, and we projected this image to a projector on her back and took a picture, and then we finished it up with Photoshop or what have you. But me and Lujar, long story short, we met through Facebook, and we've grown to be pretty cool. He's a good guy.
He's awesome.
Yeah. We're actually doing a show together in Rockport. We're going to do an art show reading.
That's
at a gallery in Rockport, so that's coming up, I think, the 25th.
Very cool. Now, Michael Hanlon, I saw that. Are you working with him also? He's a photographer. I saw. I know maybe.
Oh.
He's a mutual friend on Facebook.
Wait, he works with the Post.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that how you're connected?
Yeah, I did an interview for the Post magazine.
Okay.
And he did the photo shoot. We did that photo shoot at used to be the legal wall, the legal graffiti wall, which is kind of fitting. I should have came here, but I didn't know this was here. But we went to the legal wall, and he did my photo shoot for the Post magazine. And that interview should be coming out in November issue of the Post.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
He's good people. I like him.
Yeah, he's really cool. I wasn't sure if you guys had worked together. Well, That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I thought like maybe he did like photos or something else.
No, that was all related to the post interview, and I apologize for not knowing who he was right off the back. I'm like, ooh, but yeah, that's the guy that, he's a good guy too. We spent a lot of time out there. He did, a lot of people get you out there, take one picture, we're done, but he was really concerned, he was really professional, he really wanted to get the best shot. And I always like that, to see somebody that really takes like pride in what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
And he really did. He was a true professional. I apologize for not knowing who you
Oh,
were
no.
right
I
off the
kind
bat.
of just threw that on you,
Yeah.
so I should have probably primed you for that one.
Yeah.
But now, spoken word, is this something that you're continually doing? Like, do you do a lot of the mics, or is that? Do you see yourself pursuing that like on another level, or is it kind of just like a for fun?
Oh no, my group is called the Vagabonds, which kind of fits into what you were saying earlier. But I do have a spoken word group. It's spoken word soul music fusion, and we released a CD called The Obsession. And I just recently performed at Boulder. I was really consumed with getting this project done for a while, so that's like all I did. But now that it's out and I'm just at the promotional phase, I'll probably be performing more. I'll probably come out and perform more. Like I said, I just performed at Boulder Cafe, and I think that's on Alexander and South.
Yep. Alexander.
Yeah, I just did that. So yeah, it's definitely a passion of mine. I definitely want to see spoken word be used, or even create its own genre of music. You know what I mean? I'd like to see it used and infused into every genre of music. I think it fits, whether you're talking about country, hard rock, whatever. I think it can be adapted and it can be used in a lot of musical genres. So I'd like to see that happen as well. But
Yeah.
we'll see.
Well, if you guys ever need a home on Tuesdays or Thursdays, I know a few
Yeah.
places you could come to.
Okay. All right.
Hey, I mean, would it be too much to ask for you to give us a little something?
A spoken word piece?
Mm-hmm.
I can give you one.
Yeah, give us something.
Where at? Where do you want me to do it?
Do you want to stand?
Yeah,
Do you wanna come
I
forward?
gotta
Okay.
stand.
Should I get out of the way? Should I be scared?
Yeah, yeah. Brace yourselves. Okay, let me ask you a question. No person? No person.
Yeah, no person.
Okay, all right. I can clean it up.
I'll let,
Is this mic on?
No, it's,
This mic? Because I'm just used to
here,
speaking.
just test it. I'm not sure which one is it. No?
No, nothing.
Okay. Wait, those have to be on. Just give me a test that last one again.
This one?
No, the last one.
Hello? This one?
Okay.
I mean, would it be loud enough if he's
Yeah,
right over
you
here?
could stand behind him and do it, that would be fine, but.
Okay.
Because this is actually my
Yeah, it's actually a good mic too, because you
Yeah.
guys were getting good sound out there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, this piece I'm going to do is called Covenant. It was written a few years back. Hopefully I'll remember it all. My stage name is Tears. I represent the Vagabond family. Put that out there, Sundula. My thoughts collide in the rec yard of my mind's prison. I really don't speak at all. What you hear is the inmate screaming. These pages, free weights, 45 plates. I'm really just exercising demons. And they think I changed my name to Tears because I cry across lines, I die across lines. My fonts changed from cursive to Gothic to wedding script and flatline. This wasn't intended for entertainment. Personal scrolls and lost letters, a most intimate recital, passionate pages and pieces ripped from my heart-sacred Bible. My emotions have a way of taking control. Because I played piano in the dark for months just to hear my own notes echo off the walls of your soul. Your love was tone deaf, no harmony, no melody. Bass lines never changed. My jazz music, the soundtrack for relationships that started dysfunctional and ended estranged. And all I ever had in this world was empty pages. So I composed to the rain stop, till all my pain stopped, through the random beat of gunshots. I prayed these out on my knees every night before I went to sleep. That's why I skip church on Sundays and testify in coffee shops. These notebooks, really hymnals full of songs for lonely lovers. Turn the lights out, watch these words take life. You'll find my heartbeats through the covers. And I lost faith back when life killed my dreams. Underneath these streetlights, tears stream, yet through it all, I still learned to write and dream. Since way back when roses was red and violets was blue, before my thoughts grew from seeds and mutated and my poetry started to trouble you, I still bleed to give my emotions a voice and clear the smog from my sky's pot of blue until the clouds scream my name, until my girlfriend's parents see that I'm more than just a phase she's going through. Forget them, it's true. I learned to write and dream at the exact same time, transfer the images down my arm. This whole piece is a result of rapid hand movement. I learned to write with broken fingers and find comfort in the soulful lyrics of blues singers. My lifestyle obsessive compulsive, lit candles with therapeutic rituals. My contents under pressure, aerosol. My thoughts, I only speak to exhale graffiti murals for a world with no appreciation for art. On the rooftop drinking easy Jesus, high as angels, we was down for whatever. Until that shotgun ripped through his North Face coat and all you saw was the blood and the feathers, and it was I with the ripped shirts and the 2 pair of jeans. It was I who ain't eaten 3 or 4 days. My hunger starved my nutritional dreams. It was I with the sheets in the window frozen and alcoholic lean. So these pieces, my pages, origami to form waffle cones at night just to support my 31 eye screams, and my lifestyle's built to struggling dreams. So my character streams, and my inner child, My inner child was in the backyard class eating crayons, just trying to add some color to his fantasies. Cheers. Thank you.
I want to eat some crayons now. Well, no, I was just going to thank you very much.
Oh, okay. All right.
Thank you so much for being a part of this, for letting me put you on the spot like that. You guys, go pick up your copy of Before I Wake. Find Julian Foster on Facebook. Also, Amazon.com, you can download your personal copy. And you said you have a select.
Yeah, I have a few copies with me today. So,
Yep.
you know,
for anybody here, if you're interested, how much are you selling for?
They're 15.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
If you're here and you're interested, make sure you hit this man up. Not literally, but just grab it. And thank you very much. Pleasure to meet you.
How long is the show? Can I wait to watch the rest of the show?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please stick around.
Okay. All right. Are you giving me? Are you wanting that or what?
Oh no.
Oh,
you
okay.
can-
All right. Okay. All right, thanks.
So that was Julian Foster. Before we take a break, I'm just gonna introduce to you our cocktail of the day. If you guys are familiar with Pinterest, it's a social media outlet which I personally use quite often. But there's multiple recipes on there. If you're ever looking for something, a really excellent quick recipe to cater at your next event. This is our featured cocktail. We're calling it a blue, as in BLU, in light of where we are currently located. It's a blueberry twist, and it has amaretto, it's pineapple juice, and also it's made with Ciroc berry, pomegranate, and that is it. So, cheers, and we will be right back with David Day. Thanks. Can I go?
Yeah. Hey, there's a girl with a flower.
Hey, there's a man with a suit and a shirt tie. Great to see you.
Good to see you.
I know.
Hey, did you really get a big tattoo on your head?
You bet I did.
Oh my goodness, I saw that. I was like,
It's not that big, but
it looks big online.
it looks really good online, but it's not as scary as
Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was appropriate.
Okay, alright.
But
I saw it. I was just like, wow. I thought it was clean before it really tastes like.
No, it's the real deal.
When you do something, you do it for real, right?
Oh yeah, I go dinner and go home.
That's right.
Okay, so today's episode is about change.
Okay.
So I kind of want to talk about social changes and how that
Okay.
applies, and talk about yourself and your business. It was delicate.
Double safe. That's fine. That's a little wild.
Yeah. But I want to talk about you. You know, your background, your nature of business, social entrepreneurship versus, traditional. Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk
So
about
we'll
that.
talk about that and how it applies to change it,
Okay. Hey, Chuck, we were in the, you want to do the flower turnover of mom? You and I talked a little bit about that. The
Do you want to
seasons
talk with
change.
us?
The seasons changing. And how the seasons reflect a need to turn things over. Do you want to?
Yeah.
Do you want to turn it over?
You guys have no business in it wrong, so I have to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
you got it.
Everyone must change.
No one stays the same. Mysteries do. Yeah, it's funny. After I talked to you, I read that whole song. I read the whole.
Wait,
I was
what
like,
was that?
Psalm 62, fine. I thought it was 66. I was like, oh, 66. 68, 69. 62. Do you have a hot water? 67, yeah, you're shot. Oh, then 64. 62. So this morning I read 64. I quoted it, but yeah. It's all right. Oh, the same thing. I did it the day or something. Yeah, I tried to get rid of that. I was trying. So
Yeah.
no, it's one silence before those who.
Oh, yeah, of course. I'll post it,
Which
sometimes
one
right
are you
after
trying
it
to
shows over.
Whichever one I'll do.
So-
Which one am I reading?
It's not even with everything.
Okay.
Yeah, and use it for your website, whatever you want.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Awesome job with the spoken word, too.
All right.
You ready?
You ready?
I'm ready.
Are you on my left or?
Yeah, I'll be on the left.
Got some props for you.
Oh,
Here's our
yeah?
curriculum. Here's our materials.
Excited?
We got a drink already.
I do. Would you like a sip?
No, thank you.
Oh, yeah?
Oh yeah.
Well, hello, you guys. I'm back here with social entrepreneur David Day. Him and I became friends fairly recently through, actually, we met at, along with Udicci at the Rochester Women's Magazine Expo.
Yes.
And yeah, it was, when was it? March, you said? Or May? I don't know, doesn't matter. But we all linked up there, and instantly I was drawn to you because A, he's charismatic, and this man's mind is brilliant. So just tell
thank
him,
you.
oh, you're welcome. Tell him a little bit about, well, I love being around you. I have to say this because, like, from a business perspective, it's just refreshing, and I feel like, I don't know, it's nice to have somebody that understands, like, the business end of things, and I feel like there's so much to learn from you. And I don't know, tell him a little bit about who you are. You're a Rochester native, correct?
Well, the cool thing, right? So I thought, why don't I just meld the two together? Good community development with entrepreneurship, and I came up with social entrepreneurship. And it's the ability to solve any problem using entrepreneurship. So let's say the problem is in schools. You can solve that problem using entrepreneurship. So it really doesn't matter. It could be products or services, or it could be a need that's in Africa. We have clients in Africa. We have sustainable schools being designed in Africa for the deaf. So I get a chance to just paint a picture wherever that need is, and I help entrepreneurs create a plan and an opportunity to solve that problem.
So I know, I mean, in your description there, I know it's, I mean, here's my question, because I guess,
Sure.
I mean, even I get like a little bit confused with this. Like, could you explain, like, break it down simplicity,
Okay.
what the difference between being a social entrepreneur is as opposed to just being a traditional entrepreneur?
All right. First, you have to look at it like this. An entrepreneur really is someone who uses their creative abilities to create a product or service and then provide those products and services to all of us. That's traditionally what an entrepreneur does. But an entrepreneur really is someone who's risk-taking, innovative, creative, versatile, talented, intelligent, and all those attributes of an entrepreneur. We're not only going to create a product, we're gonna meet a critical need or a opportunity within a community. So we're using the creativity and what entrepreneurs do to apply it to solving more than just product or service needs. Let me put it like this. If there was no Papa John's Pizza, where would you go?
Camps.
Camps? And if there was no camps, where would you go? Salvatore's. And if there was no Salvatore's, where would you go? Pizza Hut. And if there was no Pizza Hut, you go to Mike and Joe's Pizza. So if you see that, there's always an opportunity for someone to find another product or service because they're out there. Social entrepreneurs create solutions to pressing issues.
Now, with social entrepreneurship, it seems like it's always kind of tied in with a cause or like a philanthropy. Like I know your business is tied in with Alsana, right?
Well, it initially started out as a funded project at Roberts Wesleyan that was funded by the Golisano Foundation. And what they wanted to see was what could be created if you took an entrepreneur and you collide social work and you collide business together. And that really funded the Institute's initial work. So here's me, the entrepreneur, and I'm going to collide together social work and, which community you can call that, and entrepreneurship together, and that created the Institute at Roberts. After 4 years, it was such a great idea, I said, I might as well keep living it.
Right.
So I've been doing it for the past 10 years too.
Now your partner,
Yes.
Julie Kaminsky, is that how you pronounce it?
Kazimierski.
Kazimierski. I know I was saying that wrong. Lovely, lovely lady. She actually was a student of yours, correct? And so you were, okay, it's right.
Picture of Julie and her.
She's such a sweetheart. Now, you were her professor, correct?
Yeah, so Julie had this concept, and I was a professor because I was looking at different programs that students were doing and trying to find and help them become social entrepreneurial. And her concept back then was to create a hardcore sports theater in some way, and now they're out there. There are all these hardcore things. At the time, she couldn't pursue it because of a family issue, but 10 years later, she contacted me online and said, hey, I want to pick up something that I dropped off. And so I got her involved in one of our classes, and at the end, I never direct the social entrepreneurs as to where they're passionate. She goes, I want to work with you. I was like, interesting. Because what we do is really, really challenging and difficult. We are the trainer of social entrepreneurs. So she is our Chief Impact Officer at the Institute.
I love it. Now, like, what's your ultimate goal? Like, where do you want to take, like, to what level do you see you taking your business and your skills?
I kind of look at it like this. The goal is to replicate. So, like, you want to create great artists and artisans and musicians and all different forms of art. That's my goal too. My goal is to replicate what I do in as many lives as possible. And what I'd love to see us do is use this as a community-wide development model. Not just developing great businesses that have a heart and understand social entrepreneurship, but how do we develop entire communities on this concept called social entrepreneurship? And I'd like to be directing a fund of about $50 million to do it. So $50 million to seed into people that want to use this as a community development model. So you think about that, we spend that a year in development in the city of Rochester. But what do we really get for it? So if I had $50 million, we'd be creating hundreds of businesses and transforming tens and hundreds of neighborhoods over time. Because our goal is to replicate this concept in communities, in schools, and in other areas.
Very nice. Now, how do you feel like, okay, so today's theme is change.
Yes.
How do you feel like since your days of teaching at Roberts Wesleyan to now, how do you feel like social entrepreneurship has grown and changed over time? Like, is, you know, the rise of social media, how big of an impact has that had on your business in general?
I look at it like a plant in many ways. The students are kind of like plants too. But every plant can't grow in a pot. It has to be planted in a fertile soil in a community. So I look at what started at Roberts. It would be great to have a relationship with colleges, so as college students say, hey, I want to do that. Instead of going to work for someone else, they create their own opportunity. We help plant them in the community. So I think that's kind of the metaphor, is to, you know, how do we get them to change? And part of the change is that their opportunity is not going to be what your dad's opportunity was. And their opportunity is not going to be my father's opportunity. Their opportunity is going to be the one that they create for themselves and the one that they manage and execute. Ours was get a good job, go to school, and have a career. Or learn what school is, and then have a career. Now, the opportunity is what do you want to make of your world, given your talents, given your skills. And social media is just one venue, or one great venue, to communicate to the world the great things that you're doing.
How do you, like, what do you find to be the most challenging aspect of being a social entrepreneur?
Actually, I think the most challenging, there's actually 3 of them. And the first is that people are afraid of failure. They're afraid to take the risk and to explain why something failed. But a social entrepreneur doesn't fail. They learn by doing. So if you can think about someone who's trying to create this drink here, this drink wasn't perfected in one setting where they knew how to add all the elements. You gave the ingredients earlier, but that drink was perfected over time. We have to give people the opportunity to learn how to fail within an area, or learn how to fail but learn within that. And that's really what we do at the Institute, is to help people learn by doing. The second thing I think is the greatest challenge is every business requires the same level of complexity. Remember your day, it starts with managing all of your relationships, managing your social media, managing your events, managing paying your taxes, and making sure there's gas in the car, making sure the schedule. So when you think about all the complexity of running a business, it's still on an entrepreneur. On a social entrepreneur, they have even a greater complexity because they're trying to measure and create social change. And then the last part is marketing.
Yeah.
It's still the hardest thing to do, is to get attention from people so that they can know that you exist and make an exchange with you. And think about all the marketing messages that people get hit with each day. So those are the 3. Risk, how do you manage all of the different functions of running a business, and then marketing.
I feel like, risk is, to me, what makes an entrepreneur, though. Because I think, do you feel, maybe you might disagree, but I feel like taking that risk is everything, and most people don't even try to take risks. They like to stay with what they're comfortable knowing. Do you think that's what makes an entrepreneur an entrepreneur? Do you agree with that, or?
Risk is definitely most entrepreneurs live on the edge. Mm-hmm. Risk is not risk, it's an opportunity. So most people are afraid of risk. An entrepreneur uses it as a tool to motivate them, to guide them, but also to let them know that they're on the right track. Think of it like this. I don't know if you remember Top Gun movie? Mm-hmm. And then in the movie he says, we're naval aviators. If we don't push the envelope, how will we know how to teach others how to do that? And that's what we do at the Institute. We push the envelope so that entrepreneurs become better. And that's risk. But if you don't take the risk, there's no reward.
Do you find that the entrepreneurs that you're working with, do they ever dismiss the value in what you're training them to become? Like, do they think, I would think like a lot of them might be stubborn, or maybe, or just kind of in their own head that they have their goals, they have their mindset, like what they want to do. They don't need any outside help. Do you ever run into that?
Yeah, it's like it's like this. The teacher can't appear to the students ready to hear. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people, I got this, I got this, I got this, I got this, I can do this. And it's a false confidence. It's not whether you're confident, it's whether you're equipped and you understand what to do. Mm-hmm. But why learn a lesson over and over again if someone's already learned the lesson and wants to share it with you? So we have a curriculum that we have called The Journey that we walk entrepreneurs through. And you know what I find? I find where they are weak, not weak, but where they're struggling, I just point to the thing. Is this the lesson that you need to learn? And it might be at the end. So I think you have to gain a trust with entrepreneurs and slow them down so that they can hear.
That's interesting. Now, like, how important to you, like, this is funny. So, my friend that I run an open gym with, like,
Yep.
we had this debate because we're very different, which I think works to our benefit. And the way I see this one open gym is our business. We've been running it for 4.5 years, you know, and every so often we run into our personal conflicts, you know, where it's like, to me, the social aspect of it is what, you know, I mean, as important all the technicalities behind sounding good and, you know, making sure that stage is right is, to me, what I find to be really most important is ensuring that people are enjoying themselves, you know, enjoying their night. And I want to ensure that they come back week after week after week, you know, and I was trying to explain like why the social aspect of it is so important, you know, and just making people feel welcomed. And do you find that like within business, with you being a social entrepreneur, like the social aspect of it, like, I mean, you're a charismatic person,
Yep.
you know, like, I mean, do you agree that having that personability or like that social influence is just as, I mean, would you agree that that's important, just as important, I mean, as the technical stuff, or, I mean, have you,
Think of it like, the way I kind of look at that is Reese's Pieces. It's peanut butter and chocolate coming together. Both by themselves are pretty good, but when you mix them together, you get something special. So whether you taste the outer chocolate shell or you taste the inner peanut butter first, you will taste both simultaneously. And I kind of look at social entrepreneurship like that. Every good business better care about people, and every caring better think like a business. So whether you taste one first, it's like your back door is my front door and my front door is your back door. You have to care about both because they do matter. There's this dispelling myth, it's really a lie, that you can just make money and not care about people. And you think about all the things that we're seeing where it matters, people matter. And in the end, most of Americans are shamed into caring when they should care in the beginning. Look at GM over the spring. Look at the NFL recently. You should be shamed into caring. And the only reason why you respond is because it's going to hurt your bottom line and your image. So when we think about social entrepreneurship, you've got to care about the customer, and the customer has to care about you. I'll give you a test. Do you live in a community?
yes,
Do you live in an apartment or a house?
house.
I'll challenge you. If you get $20 from the neighbor on your left and right hand side of your house, I'll match your 20. If you get 20 from both. You know why you can't? Because there's no sense of community anymore. So we want to create all these financial exchanges online with people and knowing people, and we don't even know the people closest to us. When we grew up in neighborhoods, and you grew up in Long Island, right? You knew the neighbor. You knew the candy lady up the street. You knew the store. You had a sense of community, and you made exchanges. All we're asking people to do is have a 21st century view of communities, and how do we create financial exchanges, and how do you use social entrepreneurship to address needs that we used to not have to pay government, police, schools, and whatever else to do.
That's
When
so
you're
funny.
going to think about that.
Yeah.
It took you back to your neighborhood, and there was always a Mrs. Kravitz. She was your crime watch person. You didn't need police, it was Mrs. Kravitz.
That's so funny, like, when I do think about that, because, like, you know, my neighbors, currently, like, growing up, yeah, we knew everybody. I knew the people across the street, you know, I knew my neighbor next door. My mom still keeps in touch with my neighbor next door and doesn't even live there.
Right.
You know, like, and they were our neighborhood friends, you know, and now, like, when I lived in, well, the neighborhood that I'm talking about, like, my, I didn't know any of them. I don't know any of their names. They came over with pies, like, when we moved in, you know, like, and cookies from the kids. And
Okay.
I think they were trying to feel out, you know, like, who we are, if we had children also, you know, and then, I don't know.
So were they profiling you, or did they really, really care?
I have no idea, to be honest, but, like, I never, to be honest, like, as social as I am on the regular, you know, and, like, doing all the things that I do, you would think that I would care more about my neighbors. But I never really went that extra mile to get to know any of them, and I kind of find it shameful, like on my own behalf, you know. But I just never see them, and who knows what they think. You know.
So what would happen if you did knock on their door at 9:30 at night and ask them for $20?
I'm sure I'd get a shotgun in the face, David. I'm just kidding. Who is this girl?
Right. But I made it an intention to get to know my neighbors.
Yeah.
So Frank would give it to me. He goes, Dave, you okay? I'll give it to you. And you can't tell what you're going to use it for. But how can we make these financial exchanges when we don't even know the people closest to us?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to start to get on the ground and really... I'll tell you interesting, and Chuck was with me one day, and we were at this school working in this... There was a local farm market, and it was the students told me it was someone from another country who owned the market. I was like, okay. And then a truck pulled up. It looked like a Chevy truck or some type, but it said Defar. And I'm thinking, they can get resources from some other country that have their name on it when we don't even have products and understanding and ownership of our own communities. I think that's the most fascinating and sad story, is we don't own anything anymore. So our first lenses is we really want people to begin to own themselves. That's the first thing of our journey, curriculum, and training. Own what you want to do and become. The second thing is own your future, meaning have a plan for what you want to do, and that's part of what we do in the journey. And then the other thing is you're going to have to rely on a host of folks that are going to help you be successful because they're what you're not. And that's where you got to create a lot of trust. So our process really starts with, we assess entrepreneurs. So we have a 15-minute online survey that we do. And what that helps us do, like this jacket fits me, but if I put it on you, it would be large, probably. But you have a jacket that fits you that I couldn't put on. What we want to do with our assessment is fit the jacket on the entrepreneur. And to what degree your entrepreneurship, and to what interest that you have. The next thing is we walk them through the journey, which is a step-by-step process to complete their plan, but it also is a sequence to get their great ideas from them. I know you come up with great ideas, but ideas are cheap, right, or free. It's the winning ideas that you really implement. And then we walk with entrepreneurs throughout the process too.
Very interesting. So, have you guys ever had the sincere privilege, like I've had, to sit down with this man, and if you're into business and you are looking to further your business, I mean, definitely reach out to them. It's the Institute for Social Entrepreneurship, and your website is instituteise.com. Check them out. Give David a holler on Facebook even, right? And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Everything.
And I look forward to collaborating with you on the artist on Monday night. So we're going to do Monday nights together, and then we'll do some other things. So it's exciting.
Yeah, that's it, exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for having us.
Of course, thank you. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with Jerry Falzone. He's going to give us a live performance and an interview, and it's going to be amazing, so stay tuned. Thank you so much.
So we'll have to get together.
Yeah, we do have to really...
All right, quick, now you're back in town for a week?
Back in town for a while.
Actually,
Yes.
you want to keep that?
Yes, sure. I'll look. How's Julie doing?
She's doing good. She has dinner date tonight, so she's going to join us.
Fancy. Nice.
Cool.
And you're doing Chuck show next? Or
No.
test?
He's going to take.
I'm going to go.
Yeah, no, actually just put those over here for them.
The chairs?
Yeah.
How are you, my friend? You doing well? Good to see you.
Jerry, were you going to sit?
There you go.
Okay.
How's business?
Oh, that's right.
Fine. Meeting a lot of people? I think Julie's going to call you on some facial products.
Yeah.
That's what you do? come to you at the front.
That's cool.
Well,
She wants to know if he sings anywhere. Sure. Hey, you got a really nice
Do you
voice.
sing out?
Him?
Yeah. Did you hear us sing?
we're gonna
Did
do
you hear us
something.
sing?
I will do something. We'll hook up together, but I gotta go to my son's volleyball. I promised him I'd be there, so. But we're gonna do something together, and what do you guys play?
Songs that Jerry wrote.
Jerry? Okay.
How'd you
We
know
were
he sang?
talking about.
Well, when he was waiting, nobody was in here, but he was singing, and like, I've sang with gospel choirs before, and that voice is amazing. It's gifted.
It's about change.
I love that.
Yeah. Have you heard his voice?
He hasn't spoken, but I've heard.
Hey, my friend.
I hear voices. Oh. All right. So, you guys are drunk.
We're on now?
You're on, yeah, she's gonna let you jump up there.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, talk.
Yeah, I promised him
You guys, this is Jared Calzone. He's gonna rock out with his beautiful wife Kathy for one song we'll be interviewing in a moment.
Crystal rain on a cloudless night. Driving south to
Thank you so much, Terry, for
There
doing
you
this.
go.
Hello. So, I don't know, I'll stand over here next to Kathy. Do you guys like sing around the house all the time together? Because that's like beautiful. Never.
No.
Never? Really?
Effort.
No. Well, Kathy, you sing at church?
I have in the past. I've been singing for 30, 40 years.
So how come, is this a song okay, the song you just performed was called,
Liar's Moon.
which is the title of your album.
That would be it.
Now, and you just recently released this album, correct?
Yes, in May.
In May. And is it available online also?
Yeah, it certainly is. cdbaby.com. I think you can get it on Facebook. I think I have it on my Facebook page.
And it's available on your website also, which is jerryfalzone.com.
No.
No? Okay. Well, never mind that, but still check out his website.
Not yet. It might be. I'm not sure if it got on there yet. My other 2 CDs are on my website, but all 3 are on CD Baby for sure.
Now, like when you write an album, Liar's Moon, is that like a theme that you want? I mean, obviously that's the title track that you just played, but do you write with a theme and concept in mind, or is it just like your life wrapped up in a year, or however long it took you from your last album?
That's a good question. Because I've had a lot of people tell me, well, Liar's Moon sounds like a concept album. But some of the songs were written quite a few years ago. Some were, one song was on my first CD and I just didn't like the way it sounded, so I redid it. So no, I really don't think in those terms, but it does seem to kind of work that way sometimes. The next one I'm working on right now, I do have a little bit more of a concept in mind with it, which means it'll probably come off totally like there's no concept at all.
That's true. I know, I found that too. Now, Jerry is, well, actually, before I even say what I was just about to say, I wanted to read this because I took it from it, very appropriate for today's theme. And it says, Jerry Falzone is no stranger to change. For years, he lived a nomadic life, traveling from city to city, state to state, in search of that elusive dream called rock and roll. How do you feel from your very first album to Liar's Moon? What has the evolution been like for you as a songwriter, as a human being? When making that statement, he's no stranger to change. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, my change started way before the first CD. So I'm hoping that what's happened from the first CD to the last one, I hope I got better.
Of course, so natural.
But as far as me personally, there hasn't been a whole lot of changes at that point. My changes really happened from before. I was in this band that was playing all over the eastern part of the country for a long time, and I was the only guy in the band that they didn't allow to have a microphone. And now I'm singing my own songs, so that was a really big change. I wasn't married, I am now, so that was a pretty big change. But when the first CD came out, I kind of took off the producer mantle that I was working, because I was producing records and writing for other artists before I did that. And when I did my first CD, then I kind of changed into, okay, I am kind of a singer-songwriter anyway, so let's see where that goes. And it's been really well received. I've been really, really happy about that.
Now, you said you've written and you've produced for other artists. Does a certain type of joy come along with that, or do you feel like you get something out of that you don't get out of your own personal music, and vice versa?
Absolutely. You had Chris Wilson on here a few weeks ago. Chris has a band called 3 Stories Tall, and they're doing a song from Liar's Moon. And I don't do it anymore because I hear them do it, and I think they've kind of come up with a definitive version of the song, and I'm really happy to hear it. It's kind of like, having a kid and seeing the kid kind of go off and do his own thing after you're all done with what you're going to do with it. And yeah, I'm thrilled when I hear other people do my songs, especially when they do them well.
Sure. So ghostwriting is definitely something that you enjoy.
Oh yeah.
You get a lot of.
I did that for a church for a long time. What was really interesting is they would ask me, they would say, we've got a message coming up on hypocrisy. Can you write a song that will start it? And I would say, hypocrisy? Yeah, I live that every day. I can do that without any problem. I remember that they did a song on the Da Vinci Code. And they said, could you write a song about that? And it's like, yeah, I could do that. And really, I think that's the biggest change I've had between albums, more than anything else, is that doing that for that church, like being given assignments on what to write and having a very short period of time to do it really kind of honed me in on focusing on a concept for a song as opposed to, sitting down trying to put everything together. It's just like, okay, I've got to get this done. I've got like 20 minutes to do it. How am I going to come up with it? And so I think I learned how to streamline a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's been a real big change in my style of writing. But as far as my life is concerned, I've gone through a lot of changes, but I'm real happy with where I'm at right now. I hope I don't go through any more for a long time.
Well, so I take it you are somebody who works very well under pressure. If you like to be you like that pressure of being assigned something.
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kathy has always said, right from the beginning when she met me, she said, I can tell you like a challenge, which is kind of why I married her. And that is, when you talk about creative challenges, when somebody says, okay, write a song about this, and by the way, it's got to be done by, a week from Sunday, and we have to be playing it then. That was a tremendous challenge. It was a really wonderful learning experience. Not that people were teaching me things, but what I had to learn through myself to be able to put that together in that period of time and get it into a position where I would not only write the song, but I would also have to direct people in performing it. And it was a really cool thing.
Cool. Now, for Liar's Moon, where do you want to take that? Was it when you publish these albums? Do you have a goal in mind? In terms of getting it out there. Do you want to get it licensed for films or movies, or is it more something just like another step along your personal journey? And this is something that you've accomplished on a personal level. That if people buy it, great. If not,
I would love people to buy it.
Well, yeah, of course. I guess it's
that just makes it so fun the next one. But what I did with the CD before Liar's Moon, I plan on doing it with Liar's Moon. I just haven't done it yet. Is I hired a radio promoter,
nice.
And she brought it into quite a few different markets around the country. It was played in Sacramento. It was played in Connecticut. It was played in Nashville. It was played. There were probably 15 different markets that actually played it. And what was kind of interesting is that when Liar's Moon came out, the station in Connecticut picked it up immediately without the use of a radio promoter. He just found out it was out. He really liked the one before that, and he has a show called Dark Side of the Highway, and he played the first 5 songs in a row and just let it keep going. So I thought that was pretty cool, and he just sent me an email saying, well, I just played another couple tracks from your CD last Sunday. So that was pretty cool. So it's nice to know that that's happening. But what I'd like to do with Liar's Moon is get it on radios in Europe, and that's the next step.
It's interesting that you mentioned the movie theme, because I just read a book, Nicholas Sparks' book, and Jerry has a new song written that is not recorded yet. And after I read the book, I said, oh my gosh, your song that you just wrote, Chasing Ghosts, just perfect for this book. So who knows where it'll take us.
Yeah, well, it's always good to not set any limitations, but I was just kind of curious because I could tell it's very personal. You have a very personal touch to your music, and that's kind of just why I asked that. Even with your deadlines and, all that stuff, there's a lot of personality and heart behind what you write. So
the thing about that I've always found to be really interesting is that, you go through 2 phases, I think, 3 phases really as a songwriter. The first phase is you haven't got a clue as to what you're doing, you're just throwing everything out there. And then you really work on the craft of what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been really fortunate in my life. I've had some really phenomenal people that have helped me with the craft of it. Jerry Englert, who he actually was producing a record with Buddy Holly when Buddy Holly was killed. He's obviously an older gentleman, but in the 80s I joined a thing that he was involved with called the Songwriter Advocate, where we had a group of people that just sat around in a circle and we would play each other our songs. And everybody would say, well, that's no good. and this is why. And you know, I spent, I think, a year there with just thinking, like, these guys don't have any idea what they're talking about. They don't like any of my songs. What's wrong with them? And then one day somebody said, well, this is what's wrong with that song. You know, you're playing in 2 different tenths. And he said, just try changing it into 1 tenth. And all of a sudden I looked at the whole song in a whole different way. I went, hey, these guys know what they're talking about. It took a year of realizing that. And I spent another 5 years with them really working on the craft of writing. And when I was writing for other people, that's what I was doing, really, you know, getting the craft together. But once I started working with the church on what I had to do for them, I realized that the 3rd phase is the art phase, which is you really put something of yourself into what you're doing. You're not so much worried about where does the chorus land, where does the verse supposed to be, should the song have a bridge, whatever. You start worrying about what is in me that's coming out in this song. And I think that certainly the last 2 albums that I did, that has been a lot more predominant than what I was doing before.
Do you think your evolution, in part, as a songwriter, has in part been influenced by all of the events that you host around town and your frequent interaction with other songwriters, and, you know, kind of seeing how, like, I felt this way, like, when I went to Nashville, and Jerry, in our community here in Rochester, has hosted a number of songwriters circles and rounds. Right now he has the Fandango at Tango, and that's every Sunday at Tango Cafe. It's at the new location. We had Carrie Vaughn on here not too long ago.
Yeah, Carrie's wonderful.
I love Carrie. I've been working with her for many years in the past when I first started doing like my local visionary stuff. But wonderful woman. But they're newly located at the Jonathan Child's house. If you haven't been down there, make sure you go there. He's always featuring some really outstanding talent. But do you feel like, I guess like your influence for Fandango at Tango in particular, like that's very Nashville to me, you know, like with the songwriters rounds, and it's refreshing to see that that's been brought to our community. So on behalf of the songwriters, I want to thank you, because I think that's
we got to get you on. I haven't had you there yet, so we got to do that.
I'd be honored. But it's refreshing to know that there's something like that going on, you know, aside from all the open jams and stuff, you know. Like,
in answer to your question, if I've been influenced by putting them on, no.
No?
I really haven't.
I'm surprised. That surprises me.
It's a funny thing, but, you know, like you can get influenced, I suppose, because you want to be competitive with people. And I gave that up a long time ago. I'm not the least bit competitive with people. So I'll bring Scott Regan on, and I think Scott's my favorite songwriter in the area. And I say that knowing how many great songwriters we have in this area, but he's just so different. And if I'm influenced by him at all, it's like, how can I make sure that I don't try to do what he does, because it's so uniquely him. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's what I've really learned through this. When you're working on the craft of songwriting, my guess is that, yeah, you can be influenced by everybody around you because you're trying to put these things together. When you get on the other side of that and you really feel confident you've got the craft side of it together and you're working on the art, then, certainly there's influences that will happen. You know, my influences, I think, are more on a national level. But when I listen to the songwriters in town here, I really appreciate them for what they do. Mm-hmm. I don't try to, to work around what they're doing with what I'm doing at all. I was interviewed for a magazine when I was recording Liar's Moon, and they said, so what are you listening to right now? To nothing. And they said, well, why not? I said, because I'm doing a CD, and the last thing I want to do is, try to be influenced by something that somebody else is doing. And my whole listening thing for a year while we were putting that CD together was going to the studio, listening to what we just did for that week, and the next week going back in, then listening again. And I did very little listening outside of what we were doing. The only thing I did listen to was Scott Regan's CD when it came out, because I love what he does. And I knew that there was absolutely no possibility of me trying to mimic it.
I guess I think it's interesting that you took that question like from a competitive standpoint, because I didn't intend for it that way, but I guess for me, like personally, and it must be just how differently like we perceive that. But I mean, for me, like I always find inspiration in other artists in general. I mean, whether it's on a large national scale or my peers. To me, it's like I think it's always interesting to me to see how other people approach songwriting. Because I think like as
approach it, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by the way other people approach it. I guess I've been doing this for so long now. I mean, I've been doing this since I was 14. So it's been a real long time. So the way that other people approach it, it's like, yeah, I used to look at that all the time. Well, what are you doing that I'm not doing? How can I do this better? But I think when I started writing for other people, I started really kind of getting into the thing of, okay, they're accepting this. I know, I got a good handle on how I'm doing this craft-wise. And once I got past that, it's really, like I really don't look at this as being competitive. And I think that's one of the real big problems people have had in the music community, not necessarily the songwriter community, but when people try to be competitive with music, what happens is you really start getting angry music.
They lose a sense of what it's about.
Yeah, they really do. And what I've been all about for the last 12 years now is trying to build a community of songwriters in this area. And I've done that through all the different things that I do. And one of the things I really strive to do is when I'm playing someplace with other songwriters, I try to be the worst songwriter. I try to be the worst singer. I try to be the worst guitar player. Because I'm not that bad. And I figure that if I'm the low level of what we're doing, it's going to be a pretty good night. We're going to have a really nice night. The people that come out to see us are going to really enjoy what we're doing. And, and I do get better when I'm working with better people.
Sure. I think there's so much to learn and to take from each other, and I try to, and this is why I appreciate you very much, because I try to do the same thing with all the things I do, and it's like, even this show, it's like, to me, there's so much benefit to being around other, bright people that are trying to strive for something more that's like beyond them, I don't know. I think there's a lot to take and a lot to learn from just human interaction in general. And as songwriters, and that's why, I couldn't thank you enough. Like, as a songwriter, to be around other people that are thinking like that, like we're a different breed, like that's for sure,
Absolutely.
Definitely a different breed, and it's, not always easily understood to somebody outside of, that. And outside of music, so I think it's great, and thank you for putting together these showcases. If you guys get a chance, go out on Sunday, and I know it's a day of reprieve, but if you could get out, make sure you go. I know, yeah, it never really is for me, but I don't know. So, did Kathy sing with you on Liar's Moon on the album?
No.
No, this is just something.
We just started getting back together again musically. We did. We went on the road for a weekend playing a couple years ago. And we went to Lake Placid and to Burlington, Vermont. And I wasn't 100% convinced that Kathy really wanted to do it. She has convinced me recently that she really does want to do it. So we are starting to work together very heavily.
In the past, I've always been busy doing my own thing. And it's just been consuming and taking a lot of time. So I haven't really been able to focus on, being there to support Jerry. I mean, I've supported Jerry, but not been there part of his thing.
Sure.
But, you're talking about change, and that's where, change has happened in my life, which has freed me up to say, okay, now this is the next step. It's our turn together, because we've done things separate. We have done things together in church, and now this is the next change for us.
I think that's an absolute positive change, like for anything to be able to share music as a couple, I think that's beautiful. So I look forward to hearing more from the both of you. And I know I'll be seeing you around town very soon. But I'm going to leave Jerry off with the final say on the show. Our show is coming to an end. What song are you going to play next for us?
Well, we'll do the one she was talking about that she thinks will work for a book. It's called Chasing Ghosts. It's going to be the title of the next CD, so I
Fantastic.
got that pretty much in my mind now when we started recording it. We haven't touched the song yet, but we have started recording the CD, so.
What is the ghost representative of? Past?
Yeah, exactly. It's, when I was writing the song, I was really thinking about a guy that would go back to his high school maybe, or maybe something, depending on how old the guy was, but something in his past. And, there's a line in it about how everything looks the same, but it's a different feel. It's like right in the beginning of the song, and then the rest of the song just kind of goes through that kind of thing, so.
Very cool. Well, thank you very much, Jerry Falzone, jerryfalzone.com, and Kathy, thank you. It's a pleasure to meet you as well. You guys, thank you for tuning in to Afternoon Cocktail. We're going to leave off with Chasing Ghosts. It's one of Jerry's new songs. And be sure to keep up with our updates on Facebook. We have a group. It's just, if you just search Afternoon Cocktail, and feel free to add yourself to our group, and we'll post in past episodes and videos and pictures and all the fun stuff, information about our past guests and upcoming guests. So be sure to follow us there. And thank you to all of today's guests, Julian Foster and to David Day. Thank you to Chuck Udicci, always for his brilliant mind and for putting this together. So leave you off. Thank you.
Riding down the back road, both hands on the wheel. Everything still looks the same.
Thank you.
Here, come real quick. Let's actually do a couple of
Shot?
You want to do some video?
Yeah, I got my flash drive over here.
Hold on.
I know.